He gripped the only thing left intact, a silver spoon, held it like a weapon. The only thing the fire hadn't taken. A reminder of the hands that once fed him. A reminder of the hands the cartel had taken. Wind sighed through the ruins, hot and bitter. The boy whispered his mother's name, then whispered it again, then again, louder, louder, until the sound broke into something raw and jagged, something too big for a child's throat. His knees hit the ground, the spoon clattering against a stone before he snatched it back, hugging it to his chest. A shadow moved at the edge of the village. He snapped his head toward it, eyes narrow, every muscle gone tense. But when he blinked, it was gone. Nothing but swirling smoke and desert heat. Still, he didn't relax. Something inside him wouldn't allow it. He rose slowly, spoon in hand, and turned toward the distant hills. He walked out of La Esperanza without looking back. The boy died that day. Something else walked away. Something the cartel should have finished. Something they would one day learn to fear. 15 years later, the night sky over Medellin glowed with neon haze. A moist heat clung to the air, mixing with gasoline fumes, fried arepas, and the restless vibration of a city that refused to sleep. People crowded the sidewalks, club lines, food vendors, bored policia, kids with roller skates weaving between traffic. Music thumped from open bars, and bright signs flickered with the desperation of a failing heartbeat. Through it all, a man walked. No one knew his name. Few dared to meet his eyes. He was tall now, lean, sleeves rolled to the elbow, boots dusty from long roads. He didn't move like a tourist or a local. He moved like someone who had survived too many things to care anymore about noise or crowds or threats. And people felt it. A group of teens laughing near a mural quieted as he passed, their faces shifting from amusement to something they didn't understand, but instinctively feared. A fruit seller wiping mango juice off his stand paused, following the stranger with his eyes until the man disappeared into the dark. Even the stray dogs kept distance, not because he radiated cruelty, because he radiated the absence of fear, the kind of absence forged only once, when everything you love is burned in front of you. He turned down a narrower street where neon gave way to flickering street lamps. A breeze carried the faint sound of a violin from somewhere above, the notes soft, mournful, almost pleading. The man's boots scuffed against the cracked pavement as he approached a bar with a sign half lit, El Leon Roto, the Broken Lion. Two cartel guards lounged outside, rifles slung casually over their shoulders. One was a thick, tattooed man, with a scar that dragged across his cheek like a knife slash. The other was wiry, his eyes too sharp, too jittery to be comfortable. "Bars closed," Scar Cheek said, not even bothering to stand. "Straighter." The stranger kept walking. "I said!" Scar Cheek stepped forward, blocking him. "Bars closed, Cabron." The stranger finally stopped, not abruptly, just a smooth, controlled halt. His eyes lifted to meet the guards, calm as still water. "I'm not here for a drink." The wiry guard snorted. "Then what the hell are you here for?" The stranger studied him for a second, then said simply, "Memory." The guards exchanged a look. Scar Cheek spat on the ground. "Move along before we—" The stranger raised his hand. Both guards instinctively drew theirs to their weapons, but all he did was set something on the small table beside the door. A spoon. The dim streetlight glinted off its metallic surface. Warped slightly, blackened at the ends. Scar Cheek's expression shifted, as though someone had whispered a ghost story in his ear. The wiry guard's Adam's apple bobbed. You, where the hell did you get that? He muttered. The stranger didn't answer. He walked past them. Neither guard moved to stop him. Not one muscle. Because something deep inside them, the primitive part people ignore, was screaming. Inside, Elion Roto smelled of spilled beer, cigarette smoke, leather, and old secrets. The lights were dim enough to hide faces, but bright enough to show weapons. Music crackled low from broken speakers. Men sat around tables littered with cards, gun magazines, and half-finished bottles. When the stranger entered, conversation thinned like air before a storm. People watched him, not openly, from the corners of their eyes. From behind raised glasses, the bartender hesitated mid-wipe. You lost, hermano. No. Then what brings you? Memory, he repeated. The bartender's brows pinched. Memory doesn't help you here. It helps me everywhere. A man at a table near the door leaned toward his companion. I swear, I know him. No, you don't, the companion said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed doubt. The stranger approached the bar. You have someone upstairs, he said quietly. Someone who owes a debt. The bartender stiffened. Many people owe things here. Not like this. The bartender swallowed. You should leave. The stranger reached into his pocket. The bartender flinched until he saw what was placed gently on the counter. Another spoon. Not the same one. A second. The bartender's face went white. You, his voice cracked. That can't be real. It is. Men nearby stood slowly, hands drifting toward their weapons. A gambler at the back table whispered, No way, he's dead. His friend whispered back, Dead men don't walk into cartel bars. The stranger's gaze slid to the staircase in the corner. Call your boss. The bartender shook his head. No, no one calls him. Call him. He'll kill you. I know. The bartender hesitated, breath trembling, then reached for the corded phone under the counter. 3 rings, a click, silence. See? A tired voice answered. The bartender stared at the stranger, throat tight. He's here. A pause. Who? The bartender looked at the spoon. The boy. The line went dead. But footsteps began upstairs. Slow, measured, certain. The entire bar fell silent. Men stood from their seats, the back door quietly locked. Guns were checked. Magazines clicked. Breath tightened. The stranger didn't move, didn't blink, didn't shift an inch. The stairs creaked. Then, El Cazador descended. Tall, lean, immaculately dressed in white despite the dingy bar around him. His dark hair slicked back, his eyes sharp and predatory, like a hawk surveying prey. But the moment he saw the stranger, those eyes narrowed with something not quite recognition, something deeper. Memory. You, the cartel boss murmured. You're alive. The stranger didn't respond. You were supposed to be Ash, El Cazador said. A footnote, a ghost. The stranger stared at him, silent. What do you want? The boss asked. The man's voice came low, steady, carved from stone. What was taken? That village, El Cazador scoffed softly, was nothing. It was everything. Then you've wasted your life chasing smoke. The stranger finally blinked. No, he said. I've spent it chasing you. Murmurs trembled through the men behind him. El Cazador stepped down the last stair, voice dropping to a whisper edged with curiosity and threat. Why come alone? I didn't. El Cazador frowned. The stranger tilted his head slightly. You hear it? Hear what? The stranger closed his eyes. Then, from outside, a motorcycle engine roared, loud, too loud, circling the building once, twice, faster. El Cazador's eyes darted to the door. What the hell? The stranger's gaze hardened. "You should have checked for survivors more carefully." And then, a sound like thunder split the street. The windows blasted inward. The front door blew open. Shards of glass rained like glittering knives. Men stumbled back, shouting. Smoke surged inside, swallowing the bar in rolling white waves. The stranger didn't flinch. He stepped forward, straight through the smoke, straight toward El Cazador. And the cartel boss finally understood. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. This was a child returning with the fire they failed to kill. This was the spoon survivor of La Esperanza, coming home. The smoke from the blast rolled back out the shattered windows as quickly as it had flooded in, sucked away by the night wind of Medellin. Screams echoed through the bar. Some men were on the floor, others staggering upright, coughing and clawing at the haze. Dust drifted down like falling snow from the exposed beams. The stranger stepped forward through the chaos, as calm as if walking down the aisle of a quiet church. The heat of the blast had kicked his shirt open at the collar, a thin trail of soot marking the side of his neck. In his right hand, the spoon glinted faintly, warped metal catching the flicker of failing bulbs. El Cazador stared at him, chest rising and falling with short, disbelieving breaths. What did you? Nothing yet, the stranger said. Behind them, a man with a jagged beard raised his rifle shakily and fired. The muzzle flashed bright in the dim bar. The stranger stepped right. The bullet tore through the back wall. Another shot. The stranger ducked low, slid across the floor on one knee, swept a fallen chair into the gunman's shins. The man toppled. His rifle clattered. Before he hit the ground, the stranger was already moving past him, boots silent, eyes locked only on El Cazador. Two more men jumped in front of their boss, weapons out. The stranger didn't pause. He grabbed the closest by the arm, twisted, snapped the elbow sideways. The man went down screaming. Another swung a knife. The stranger caught the wrist mid-air and slammed it into the corner edge of the bar counter. Once, twice, until the blade dropped and the man followed. Still calm, still silent, not rushing, not panting, not wild like someone fighting for survival. He moved like someone removing obstacles. El Cazador backed up half a step, one hand reaching instinctively behind him for the hidden gun in his waistband. But his fingers stopped short. A twitch, a doubt. Not because of the gun, because of the man walking toward him without a tremor in his hands. "You think this ends with me?" El Cazador said, voice brittle. "You think one man walking out of a grave burns an empire?" "You burned my home," the stranger said. "Now I burn yours." The cartel boss's eyes hardened. "You were supposed to die." "I did," the stranger replied. "But you didn't bury me deep enough." The man nearest the pool table lunged at him with a broken bottle. The stranger sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, and used his momentum to fling him head first into the table. Wood splintered. Balls rolled across the floor. Another guard fired. The bullet whizzed past the stranger's shoulder, grazing fabric. The stranger launched himself behind the overturned table, ripped a metal support beam clean off, and swung it into the guard's legs. The man collapsed with a howl. The stranger didn't even look at him. El Cazador's breathing quickened. Sweat formed on his brow despite the cool night draft slipping through the broken windows. "You're not getting out of here alive," the boss said, though even he didn't believe it anymore. "I'm not here to get out," the stranger murmured. "I'm here to finish." Outside, The motorcycle engine revved again, circling, closing, roaring like a metallic beast scenting blood. El Cazador jolted. "Who is that? Who the hell did you bring?" The stranger didn't look away from him. "Someone who knows what you did." "Who?" the boss snapped. "The other survivor." El Cazador froze. "No," he whispered. "There wasn't another." "There was," the stranger said. "You just didn't see her." A shadow flickered past the broken front doorway. El Cazador stiffened. His hand edged toward his back again. But now, the stranger moved quicker. He was on the boss in 2 strides, slamming him back against the staircase railing. The wood cracked. Dust fell in a thin cascade. El Cazador's breath shot out in a grunt. "Let go!" "You came to La Esperanza," the stranger said, voice low, even, deadly calm. "You torched every home, shot anyone who ran, buried the rest." "They were harboring traitors," El Cazador hissed, struggling. "We were cleaning the region." "You were killing families," El Cazador spat. "Collateral!" The stranger's jaw flexed, but his grip remained steady. He leaned in close enough for their foreheads to almost touch. "Say my mother's name." El Cazador blinked. "What?" "You have records," the stranger said. "You remember the villages you wipe out? Say her name." El Cazador's eyes darted, searching, calculating. "I don't remember every peasant woman we—" The stranger slammed him harder against the rail. Wood cracked deeper. Men around them flinched. "Say it!" I don't—" "You do." The boss clenched his teeth, swallowed, then forced out a name through shaky lips. A name the stranger hadn't heard spoken by another human being in 15 years. The stranger's grip trembled, not with weakness, with restraint. For the first time, emotion, raw and volcanic, splintered the calm mask on his face. Then, a crash. The front door blasted inward as the motorcycle plowed straight into the entryway, sparks showering the floor. The rider leapt off, rolling to her feet with the feral grace of someone who'd grown up dodging bullets and consequences. A woman, early 20s, sharp eyes, hair tied back with a strip of faded cloth. She wore a leather jacket and fingerless gloves, and in her right hand was a rusted machete ground down to a razor edge. She rose from her roll, exhaled, and met the stranger's eyes. "We're late," she said. "You're right on time," he replied. El Cazador's eyes widened. Who are you?" The woman glared at him as if his existence offended her. "Someone you hunted," she said. "Someone you thought died with my brother." She nodded once to the stranger. His expression softened, for the first time that night. She stepped forward, boots crunching over broken glass. "I was under the floorboards," she said to the boss. "Too small for your men to notice. 2 days I stayed there, listening to the buzzards land on the roofs." The stranger let El Cazador drop to the floor. The boss coughed, dragging breath back into his lungs. "You too," El Cazador rasped. "You were children, barely walking." "We learned fast," the woman said. "We had to," the stranger added. Men around the bar looked at one another helplessly, those still conscious, still breathing, still unsure whether their guns meant anything anymore. The woman raised the machete. "This place is done." "No," the stranger said softly. "Not yet." He stepped toward El Cazador again. The boss tried to push himself up, but pain shot through him. His voice cracked. Wait. You killed my men. Fine. You want me? Fine. But this," he motioned weakly to the woman. "This is no righteous crusade. This is murder." The stranger crouched in front of him, expression unreadable. "Everything you see here tonight, he said. You taught us. El Cazador swallowed thickly. What do you want? The stranger reached into his pocket. The boss flinched, but all the man removed was another spoon. He held it between two fingers, letting the dim light outline its warped edge. This, the stranger said, is what you left behind. El Cazador stared at it, confused, then horrified. This spoon, the man continued, fed a family, stirred soups, served meals. It touched the hands of people who welcomed strangers into their home, who prayed at dawn, who worked until their backs gave out. His voice hardened. And you turned it into a relic. A tear, one single tear, slipped down the boss's cheek. Fear, not remorse. The stranger placed the spoon on the boss's chest. You don't get executions tonight, he said. You get revelations. He stood. El Cazador, the man said. We're not here to kill you. The boss blinked, stunned. We're here, the woman said, stepping beside the stranger, to ruin you. The stranger nodded. And you're going to help. El Cazador's eyes widened. What do you mean? The stranger leaned in close, whispering. You're going to tell us every name, every location, every operation, every stash house, every contact, every general, every politician, every bribe, every supplier, every rat, every deal, every blood trail. El Cazador's mouth opened, closed, opened again. And if I refuse? The woman smiled, a cold, tired thing. We survived hell, she said. You won't survive us. Silence filled the bar, heavy, suffocating, final. Then the stranger extended a hand toward the door. Let's go, he said. We start with the first lie you ever told. El Cazador stared up at the two survivors, the children he had failed to finish, now grown into something that walked like destiny. Slowly, with trembling fingers, he reached for the spoon on his chest, and the moment he touched it, he knew he would never leave this night whole. He knew he would talk. He knew his empire had already fallen. And he knew the survivors of La Esperanza were built from something fire could not burn. The night swallowed the three of them as they pushed out of El León Roto, El Cazador limping between the two survivors, flanked by a man and woman carrying 15 years of ghosts. The shattered door creaked behind them, swinging on one hinge until it snapped off entirely and clattered onto the pavement. The street outside was nearly deserted. The explosion had scared off every civilian within 4 blocks. Only the flickering glow of street lamps remained, casting long, trembling shadows that stretched like fingers across the asphalt. The motorcycle still idled at the curb, gasping smoke from the engine, as if exhausted by the chaos it had helped create. The woman approached it first, tapping the leather seat with the flat of her machete. We can't all fit, she said. We're not riding, the stranger replied. We're walking. El Cazador coughed painfully, frowning. Walking? At this hour? In this district? You'll get caught. The woman smirked. That's the plan. The stranger tugged him forward by the collar, forcing him into motion. You lived in shadows, he said. So now we drag you through the light. They moved down the cracked sidewalk, the faint buzz of electricity overhead mixing with the distant thump of reggaeton from unseen windows. Stray dogs lingered at alley openings, watching with hungry curiosity. A police siren wailed in the distance, too far to be of concern yet close enough to remind everyone that danger had a heartbeat. El Cazador limped awkwardly. Blood smeared down the side of his shirt from a gash he'd gotten during the blast. You think the streets will protect you? He muttered. Medellin devours the weak. Then it's a good thing, the woman said, flipping her machete onto her shoulder. We're nothing like weak. For a while, the only sound was footsteps. Slow, even, deliberate. The stranger walked ahead, still gripping the spoon he had retrieved from the bar, still rolling the metal between his fingers, like it grounded him. He kept his shoulders steady, breathing measured. The woman walked behind El Cazador, the machete point grazing the hem of his shirt each time he slowed too much. You said you wanted names, El Cazador rasped finally, voice hoarse. Fine, I'll talk. But you have no idea the kind of people you're provoking. The stranger didn't look back. Provoking is the least of what we're doing. We survived worse than them, the woman added quietly. El Cazador's lip curled. You survived because we let you slip through. The stranger stopped walking. He turned and looked at the cartel boss with an expression so calm it terrified him. You keep telling yourself that, he said. Wind swept down the street, carrying dust and a faint scent of wet stone. The weather was turning. Clouds gathered overhead, thick and heavy, threatening rain they all knew would come too late to cool the tension. They continued walking. After several blocks, the city's nightlife gave way to darker, narrower streets. Industrial zones, where old factories leaned like tired giants, where broken windows glimmered like jagged smiles, where walls were coated in graffiti that told stories no one lived to explain. The woman paused at an intersection. Hear that? The stranger nodded. El Cazador's face tightened. What? What do you hear? The woman lifted a finger. In the distance, engines. Several. Slowly growing louder. They found us, she said. They always would. The stranger replied. He turned to El Cazador. Your men? The cartel boss swallowed hard. Not mine anymore. A pair of black SUVs rolled into view from the far end of the street, headlights punching through the dark like blades of white fire. The hum of engines thickened the air. The strangers had seconds, maybe less. The woman cracked her neck. We can't outrun them. We're not running, the stranger said. El Cazador looked horrified. Are you insane? They'll shoot you where you stand. They'll try. The SUVs screeched to a stop across the street, forming a barricade. Doors slammed open. Figures stepped out, heavily armed, armored, moving with the precision of men who lived their lives with bullets as punctuation. One of them shouted, Drop the machete! Drop the weapon! The woman lifted the blade higher. The stranger stepped forward, placing himself between her and the guns. Let him speak. The gunman hesitated. One muttered, Is that? It is. Another answered. Then why? Why is he? El Cazador lifted his hands desperately. Wait, listen to me. His voice cracked. He stopped. The men in military gear didn't lower their weapons. They weren't here for him. They were here because someone else wanted him dead. The stranger's eyes flicked over their gear. They're not your men. El Cazador said nothing. The woman stepped close to him, blade grazing his throat. Who did you betray to get yourself erased? A gunman barked. Last warning, surrender your weapons. The stranger inhaled slowly. The only warning we need, he murmured, is silence. The woman nodded. Then, with perfect synchronization, the two survivors moved. The stranger lunged left, sweeping behind a rusting dumpster as bullets tore through the metal, sparks flying. The woman dove right, rolling behind a concrete barrier, her machete clattering, but not leaving her grip. El Cazador scrambled on his injured leg, diving behind a stack of wooden pallets just as gunfire ripped into the stack, exploding splinters everywhere. The street erupted into chaos. Bullets whined like angry hornets. Windows shattered. Dust plumed. A street lamp overhead burst, drenching the area in flickering strobe-like flashes. The strangers moved through the explosions of concrete and wood like dancers in a deadly rhythm. "They're not here for us!" the woman shouted. The stranger fired back with a gun he'd taken from the bar, forcing two gunmen behind a vehicle. "No," he said. "They're here to erase what he knows." El Cazador cowered behind the pallets, shouting desperately, "You have to protect me!" The stranger shot again. "We don't have to do anything." The boss swallowed a scream as a bullet ricocheted off the pavement beside his heel. "But," the stranger continued, "we will, until you talk." Gunfire intensified. The SUVs repositioned, trying to box them in. The woman sprinted across open ground, slicing a tire on the nearest SUV before sliding under it. The vehicle lurched sideways, tire exploding, sparks spraying. Three gunmen advanced on the stranger's position. He vaulted the dumpster, grabbed a broken sheet of metal, and used it as a shield as bullets punched through it. He rolled behind another barrier, popped up, and shot two men in their legs. The third rushed him with a knife. The stranger dodged, grabbed the man's arm, and slammed his head into the hood of the SUV. He crumpled, unconscious. The woman slid out from under the SUV, machete dripping with tire rubber and something darker. "We need to move." "Not without him," the stranger said, jerking his chin toward El Cazador. The boss whimpered. "They want me dead. My own partners. They want me gone so you can't expose them." "You're catching on," the woman muttered. The remaining gunmen regrouped behind the second SUV, preparing for a final push. One radioed urgently, "Back up en route. Lock down the street." The stranger frowned. "We're running out of time." The woman glanced at a metal fire escape attached to a nearby warehouse. "There." He nodded. They dashed toward El Cazador. The stranger grabbed him roughly by the collar, yanking him upright. The boss screamed in pain. "My leg! I can't." "You'll move," the stranger said, "or I'll drag you." He dragged him anyway. The woman sprinted ahead, slicing through the lock on the warehouse door with a single sharp strike. The door swung open. "Inside!" she shouted. The stranger shoved El Cazador through the doorway. Gunfire erupted behind them, bullets tearing through the warehouse wall as they ducked inside. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed them. Inside, the air was stale and cold, smelling of oil, rust, and forgotten machines. Old conveyor belts stood like decayed ribs. Chains hung from the ceiling. Piles of unused crates formed a labyrinth of shadows. "Up," the woman whispered, pointing to the stairs leading to a catwalk. They climbed quickly, the stranger half carrying, half dragging El Cazador. Behind them, the gunmen burst into the warehouse, flashlights sweeping the darkness like searching eyes. They scattered up the stairs, found the catwalk, crossed silently to the far end. Below, flashlights danced, voices barked orders. "Clear the south wall! They're here somewhere! He's with two others! Kill them all!" The stranger pressed El Cazador against the railing, hand clamped over his mouth. The woman peeked through a gap in the metal, whispering, "We can lose them through the roof." The boss trembled violently. The stranger leaned close and whispered, "If you make a sound, if you draw attention, you'll die before they even see us." El Cazador nodded frantically. They crept along the catwalk toward the roof ladder. But halfway across, a gunman looked up. "There!" he screamed. "On the walkway!" Spotlights swung upward. Bullets screamed toward them. The catwalk exploded in sparks. The stranger shielded El Cazador with his body as metal burst around them. The woman grabbed the ladder, kicking it down. "Move!" she shouted. The stranger shoved the boss toward her. "Climb!" El Cazador scrambled, terrified. Bullets tore through the walkway. The stranger grabbed the edge of the ladder and started up. When a blast shook the entire warehouse, a grenade thrown from the floor. The woman's eyes widened. The stranger's hand tightened on the rung. The grenade hit the catwalk behind them, and the entire metal platform tore loose. It dropped. Screams, debris, shattering metal. The stranger pushed the woman upward. "Go! But go!" she climbed. He followed. The explosion ripped the catwalk free, sending the remains crashing down in a deafening roar. They reached the roof hatch just as the warehouse filled with smoke and alarms. On the roof, the night air hit them hard, cool, sharp, alive. From here, Medellin sprawled in every direction, running lights down winding hills, stretching into the dark like a city built on top of an electric heart. El Cazador collapsed, gasping. The woman slammed the hatch shut and jammed it with a metal rod. Voices below shouted. Fists pounded on metal. The stranger stood at the roof's edge. The woman joined him. "We can't outrun an army." "We won't need to," he said softly. She frowned. "What do you mean?" The stranger lifted the spoon again, holding it between them. "Tonight," he said, "we tell the city who burned La Esperanza." The woman's breath caught. "You want to expose him?" "Not just him," the stranger said. "All of them." "And you think the city will listen?" "They'll listen," he whispered, "because we survived where they wanted silence." He turned toward El Cazador, broken, trembling, defeated. "Time to talk," the stranger said. "Everything you know. Every name." The boss looked out across the city. His empire, his fear, his end. And, with a shuddering exhale, he nodded once. "I'll tell you everything." The stranger knelt, placed the spoon between them, and the rooftop of a forgotten warehouse became the birthplace of the cartel's downfall. Rain swept over the rooftop in thin, needling sheets, cold, metallic, carrying the taste of a storm that had been gathering since the moment they dragged El Cazador from the ruins of El León Roto. The city lights blurred beneath the downpour, turning Medellin into a shimmering mosaic of gold and crimson. Sirens echoed faintly. Helicopters beat the air in distant pulses. Somewhere below them, engines growled as more cartel hunters were dispatched, following the trail of fire and violence left in the wake of 3 fugitives. El Cazador sat slumped against a rusted ventilation unit, water dripping from his hair and soaking his expensive jacket until it clung to his body like a second skin of shame. His breathing was shaky, uneven. But he wasn't dying. Not yet. He stared at the stranger kneeling in front of him, and every second made him look older, weaker, as if the truth itself aged him. The stranger held the spoon gently between both hands, as if it were some fragile relic carved from bone instead of simple metal. Rain pattered against it, sliding off silvery curves. The warehouse rooftop vibrated with distant thunder. "You remember?" El Cazador whispered, his voice thin. "You remember everything." The stranger didn't answer. His jaw was set, his eyes dark in the stormlight. He looked like a ghost given flesh, silent, patient, dangerous in the way unspoken things can be. The woman stood behind them, machete resting on her shoulder, rain dripping from her braids. She watched the stairwell door, listening for the pounding from below to intensify. It hadn't yet. That meant the hit squad was regrouping. That meant they had minutes, maybe less, before the real storm reached them. "Talk," she said over her shoulder. "You promised." El Cazador wiped the rain from his face with shaking fingers. I didn't know at first. La Esperanza was supposed to be a message, not an execution. We were told the village harbored rebels, that they'd hidden weapons for an enemy faction. We gave the order to cleanse it. His eyes flicked toward the stranger. I didn't expect survivors. I didn't expect any of you to. The stranger lunged suddenly, grabbing the front of El Cazador's soaked shirt and yanking him forward until their faces were inches apart. "Names," the stranger said. "Not excuses." El Cazador choked. The order came from the Triad Commission. That's what they call themselves now. The three who control the routes, the ports, the finances. You think I'm powerful? I'm nothing compared to them. They decide who lives and dies. They rebuild or erase entire towns for convenience. "Who are they?" the woman demanded. He hesitated. The stranger tightened his grip. "Their names," he repeated. El Cazador swallowed hard. "Serrano, Valdez, and a man you've never heard of. A man no one sees, no one photographs. They call him El Ministro." He shuddered. "He's the one who ordered La Esperanza burned. He said a family there was compromising his operations. He wanted a clean slate. I didn't know." The stranger shoved him back again, disgusted. "You knew," he said quietly. "You always knew." The rooftop door shuddered violently. Metal shook. Bolts strained. The woman pivoted into a defensive stance. "They're coming," she muttered. "We need a way off this roof." "There is no way off," El Cazador said, panic rising in his voice. "They'll sweep the whole block. They'll—" A shot ripped through the air. The rooftop ventilation unit near El Cazador exploded into a shower of sparks, making him scream and curl into a ball. The woman spun, blade raised. Across the building, on another rooftop, silhouettes moved through the rain, shadows with rifles. "Snipers!" she shouted. The stranger pulled El Cazador to his feet, dragging him toward the low wall at the edge of the roof. Bullets whistled past them, tearing chunks of concrete from the ledge. The woman sprinted behind them, zigzagging through the gunfire. They slid behind the wall. Rain hammered the concrete above their heads. The stranger peeked over the edge. Below them was a narrow alley, 2 stories down, flooded by rainwater, filled with trash and broken crates. "We can make it," the woman said. "He won't," the stranger replied, jerking his chin toward El Cazador. "I can!" the cartel boss cried, desperation thick in his voice. "I'll jump, I swear." The stranger's eyes didn't soften. "You'll do more than that," he said. "You're going to get us out of this city alive." "How?" El Cazador demanded. "You've seen what they're willing to do. They'll level the entire neighborhood." The woman stared at him. "Then, give us something bigger. Something that scares them." A loud bang cracked behind them. The rooftop door was forced open. Voices surged upward. Boots pounded. The stranger grabbed El Cazador by the back of the neck, forcing his face close. "Tell me something they would kill you instantly for revealing." El Cazador froze. Bullets slammed into the wall inches above their heads. "Now!" the stranger snarled. El Cazador broke. The minister, he choked out. He's not cartel. He's government. He feeds them intelligence, resources, protection. He uses them to eliminate political obstacles. La Esperanza, your village. It wasn't about drugs. It was about a land dispute. Someone there refused to sell a piece of property that contained something they wanted buried. The woman blinked, stunned. What property? El Cazador looked at the stranger. Your family's? A silence sharper than gunfire. The stranger didn't breathe. Lightning flashed overhead, outlining the rooftop in a jagged skeleton of white. He sent men to negotiate, El Cazador said. Your father refused. Your mother documented the threats. She made recordings, files, notes, things that could expose what he was doing. The stranger's nails dug into El Cazador's shoulder. You burned the entire village for documents. For what those documents could reveal, the boss whispered. There are things buried under that land, things the minister has killed hundreds of people to keep secret. The woman touched the stranger's arm. Hey, stay with me. Below them, engines revved. More SUVs, more men. The city was turning into a battlefield. What did the documents say? The stranger asked. I never saw them, El Cazador said, but I know where they were taken. He lifted shaking fingers, pointing to a distant hill where a cluster of government buildings rose like jagged teeth. El Archivo Negro, the Black Archive, a restricted vault beneath the ministry building. Thunder boomed. Everything they stole from you, El Cazador said, is in there. The woman cursed under her breath. We're not getting in there without an army. The stranger stood slowly, spoon still clutched in one hand, water dripping from his hair onto his face. Something changed in his eyes, a quiet, lethal clarity. We don't need an army, he said. Rain intensified, turning the rooftop into a cold river. We just need the truth. Gunmen reached the top of the stairwell, their figures distorted by the storm. The woman pushed El Cazador toward the ledge. We jump, she said. He won't survive, the stranger reminded her. El Cazador's eyes widened. Please, I'll die out there. You'll die up here, the woman snapped. Pick one. Gunfire erupted from the newly breached doorway. The stranger grabbed El Cazador's arm and pulled him close. If you die tonight, he said softly, your truth dies with you. Is that how you want to be remembered? As the man who ordered the death of a village, or the man who finally exposed the people who destroyed it? El Cazador swallowed, trembling. Help us, the stranger whispered. Help us destroy them. The rooftop shook from the force of incoming bullets. El Cazador squeezed his eyes shut. Fine, I'll help you. I'll get you into the archive. I'll testify. Whatever you want. Just don't let them kill me. The stranger nodded once. Jump. The woman didn't wait. She vaulted first, slicing through the air and hitting the flooded alley below with a bone-jarring splash. El Cazador screamed as the stranger shoved him forward. His body arced clumsily through the storm, limbs flailing, before crashing into the water below. The stranger stood at the ledge. The gunmen emerged through the smoke, weapons raised, shouting for him to freeze. He raised the spoon in a small, defiant gesture. Then he stepped backward and vanished over the edge. The fall hit like a punch, driving the air from his lungs. Water flooded over him, thick and dirty and freezing cold. He resurfaced with a violent gasp. The woman grabbed his arm, dragging him upright. El Cazador sobbed, barely able to stand. Rain pounded the alley. Above them, gunmen shouted, scrambling to reposition. We need to move, the woman said. The stranger nodded. They pushed forward through the alley's darkness, water swirling around their ankles, trash floating along the current like small, broken ghosts. Sirens blared. Helicopters swept searchlights across the city. The warehouse behind them erupted into gunfire and smoke. Through it all, the stranger held the spoon tight, as if it were the only thing anchoring him to the world, as if it were the only thing he trusted not to be taken from him. They disappeared into the night, 3 figures running through the rain toward a reckoning, 15 years overdue. And somewhere, in a vault beneath the ministry, the truth waited, buried, locked, stolen, not for much longer.